Welcome to VET S.O.S. Veteran Educational Resources Spotlight. Remember, don't drown in the sea of transition. Grab the VET S.O.S. Lifeline. VET S.O.S. is brought to you by the Who You Know Network and proud members of the Parade Deck community. Today, I'm sitting down with Dr. Hira again for another great guest. How you doing today, Dr. Hira?
I'm doing great. I am so excited about today's guest. This is one of my favorite things to talk about, and I know Monica is going to share some great information for the community. So I'm thrilled to have Higher Ed Military on today.
Outstanding. This is going to be exciting because I don't know a whole lot about this organization, so I'm looking forward to this as well. So today we're sitting down with Monica, and I did not ask how to pronounce your last name.
Oh, that's
I just
okay. Sziron. Go with Sziron. It's great.
Sziron.
Yeah.
I can say that.
There you go.
Monika Sziron, the Assistant Director of Editorial Strategy for Higher Ed Military. Her work focuses on helping veterans and their families find careers in higher education, and she helps facilitate connections nationwide between professional serving student veterans. She holds a PhD from Illinois Tech in Technology and Humanities. How are you doing today, Monika?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm excited to talk about higher ed military and create a little bit more awareness about what we do and how we fit into the military landscape. So, yeah.
Definitely excited to hear about it. I'm familiar with the organization. Like I've heard about it. I've heard people. I've heard Hira talk about it several times. It was one of those things. I just never looked into the program, so I'm excited to learn.
Sure.
So before we jump into actually talking about higher ed military, let's talk about your pathway to working with veterans in higher education. Like, what did that look like? How'd you wind up doing that?
Yeah. So I'm a civilian, and my military affiliation is that of like my grandfather and maybe my brother-in-law. So I don't have any immediate connections to the military, and so people are obviously like, "How did you end up doing this?" And I will tell you, it was kind of just the luck of the draw at our company. I was the person doing the least amount of things at the time, and they said, "Monica, can you go start this higher ed military thing and learn what we're doing here?" And I was like, sure, I can do that. It can't be too tough. And then, jumped into it. And, to be honest with you, I was a student for a long time. I got a PhD, and before working in this space, I couldn't tell you where the Student Veteran Center was on any campus that I had been to. Like, I was not a part of this space at all. And I had been in the tech side of things and tech conferences and all of these kinds of areas of higher ed, but I had never been in the military affiliated space. And as I started working more in the space and learning from those like Hira and other professionals, it's the best part of higher ed that I've ever been a part of. It's so inclusive, welcoming, supportive of one another. So that's kind of my path. Is I fell into it, and I'm really not supposed to be here. I landed here, and I love it, and I'm not leaving. So,
Well, I'm glad to hear that we have such an advocate on our side. Then that is fantastic,
yeah.
and such an interesting way to get there.
Yeah.
That's I love though how you pointed out that you have no idea where the veteran centers were on.
No, I didn't, and I didn't know what a school certifying official was. I didn't know like how the GI Bill worked. I was this, it was almost like a second dissertation for me, learning what goes on in the military affiliated space in higher ed. So, yeah.
I think that's a great point because I think a lot of higher ed institutions say, "Oh, it's just that. It's easy. There's not much to it." And then you hear somebody being like, "These are all the components to it. I had no idea." So, that's part of the awareness higher ed military, I think, is bringing to a lot of campuses.
Absolutely.
It's fantastic. All right, so tell us about this organization. What is Higher Ed Military?
Yeah. So I was thinking about how to share like the background with you all, and I think the best way to do that is like kind of start like with the journey of how it began. So
let me jump. I think the best way might be interpretive dance.
Oh, okay. You know what? I don't have enough time for that, but
No, okay.
we'll
go for second best.
Yeah. So Higher Ed Jobs is the main site of our brand, Higher Ed Military. Higher Ed Military is kind of our military affiliated brand. And so Higher Ed Jobs has been around for years and years, and it's the leading job board in higher education. So anybody looking for a position in higher education usually comes to Higher Ed Jobs to find a position. And we had been hearing from our employers, the colleges and universities, for years, hey, we want to recruit military talent. but we don't know where to find them, and we're having a hard time placing them, and we're not sure, what this looks like, what their transitions look like, and how can we best do this. And so for a long time we said, yeah, we're going to do that. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. And COVID happened. And we were all of a sudden, like everybody, struck with like a lot of time on our hands. How, what could we start doing? What kind of projects have we been pushing aside that we can start now? And so that's what we did is we said, okay, like let's jump into this military brand while we have the time. And that's where I come into play. And we realized, okay, we can create a job board for military affiliated individuals and their families to work in higher education. That's easy enough, right? We have the colleges and universities that are looking for the talent, and we can take their job postings and say, hey, so and so university wants to recruit you for XYZ reasons. They want this military affiliation on their campus. But then we started having focus groups and talking to those that currently work in higher ed in different military affiliated positions, but also who serve student veterans on campus. And can I swear on this show, or are we? I usually just say the S word, but anyway,
it's an adult show.
We started realizing, holy crap, there are a lot of holes and gaps in the military affiliated space in higher education. There are people that are trying to serve student veterans, but they're all super siloed. And this, there could be years and years and years where these two people work together and neither of them knew that they were veterans, or neither of them knew that they had any kind of military family connection. And so we started saying, okay, there's a lot more here. And with that came our content and our editorial content, which is now really the main focus of HigherEdMilitary. We have the jobs and we have the access to those resources if someone is a job seeker looking to, work in higher education. But we realize that our real purpose here is to be the facilitator and host the events and bring people together, because there are large schools like the Texas A&Ms of the world that have these huge centers and resources, and they're amazing. And then you have community college campus in the middle of nowhere that has maybe, just as many veterans, but not the support or the background and the resources that they need. So we try to bring everybody together and say, hey, we're all serving the student veteran, and what can we learn from each other? And like, let's work together on building that. So long story short, started as a job board. Then it turned into a community of higher ed professionals just trying to work with each other and serve each other in the goal of helping student veterans and their families.
That's fantastic. I'll tell you what, this must be one of your favorite organizations, Dr. Hero, because you have been smiling like a little kid at the candy counter.
Because, again, we look, a lot of what we hear about in higher ed is, oh, we got to support the student veteran. And we do, obviously. But how are we supporting the professionals doing the work? How are we helping those who are trying to do that on the front lines? As we've seen in our show, there's a variety of centers, as Monika said, that people who have it all, and then people who are like, I have one desk and I was lucky enough to get a lamp, and here we are, And so what HigherEdMilitary has done is said, here are the jobs, but here's also the community to support you in the work you're doing, so you're not feeling alone. Because it is a lot and it is demanding. And then it's, don't reinvent the wheel. Here's a resource I'm happy to share with you that helped our programming out. And then there's the mentorship piece, right? So you have the military community who's saying, okay, yeah, I'm interested in working in higher ed, but it's scary to make that shift and that jump. And so you can connect with these other professionals and say, how did you get there? What was your pathway? So, you have the job opportunities in front of you. You have the community for learning and mentorship. And then again, as Monika said, the resources. There's all these articles being put out. So, you can go in and learn on your own without engaging right away and jumping into meetings or calls. And I think one of the biggest values we've seen too is the network is able then to go back to their institutions and say, hey, here's data, here's articles, here's other people who can come and help us understand how we could be supporting the student body better or more efficiently or whatever it is. And then there's opportunities for the fellowship. So there's fellowships there where people get to kind of dabble in this space. And that's where student veterans can really benefit from this as well. It's not just the professional, but somebody who's also in their academic program can engage with HigherEdMilitary. So a lot of touch points. You can find, whatever way is comfortable to
Mhm.
engage and find what's meaningful out of it. Kind of like the SOS, we're going to give you the information and the resources, engage how it's comfortable for you, but know there's a community there waiting if and when you want to be a part of it. So,
Yeah,
I,
exactly.
I love it. You just put us on par with them.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Of course. You're bringing the communities together, and that's what it's all about.
I love it. All right. So, how do people get involved? Whether or not they,
Mhm.
they want to do some research through there, find some
Yeah.
specific resource, or
Yeah.
if they just want to even,
Yep.
assist or help out the organization?
Yeah. So if you are someone that's considering, or you're a job seeker right now, you're looking for a position and you've never considered higher education, I can I encourage you to take a look at our website and see what jobs are available. There are everything across the board. We need campus safety professionals, we need lawyers, we need engineers, we need IT professionals. It's not just for professors and teachers to work in higher education. So if you're currently a job seeker, I encourage you to go to the site, see what's available. You can search by your local, your region. There's online and remote positions as well, part-time positions, really anything you can find. So that's one way to engage if you're looking for a new position. The second way is if you do look through our content and you're seeing some, article content areas, topics that you're like, oh, I like that, or oh, they're missing the mark on this. I want to talk more. I want to hear more about this topic area. Feel free to reach out to me. And you can, I think you guys have my email, but I can also, the general email is content@higheredmilitary.com. And you can submit article ideas, pitches, um, all of our services are free to veterans and their families, so you'll never like pay for reading an article or anything like that, and or pay for having to access the job postings. So that's another way. We also have virtual monthly networking sessions where we come together and we talk about an issue in higher education. It kind of changes every month. This month we're talking about how best to serve online students and what that looks like in the military affiliated space. So, if there's a topic area that you want to jump in on and just listen and hear what people in higher ed are talking about, those are open and free as well. So that's another way. And I think those are the three main ways to engage with us. Hira, correct me if I'm forgetting anything, but I think those are
just
the three.
yeah, those are the main three for the professional side, and then again, we do have there's the fellowships.
Yes,
So
I should.
watching for that if you're kind of
Yes.
curious what it looks like,
Yep.
and to get engaged while if you're a student and looking for opportunity to kind of expand your portfolio and get exposure. Um,
Exactly. Yeah, the fellowship is open in every December. Student veterans and military spouses are able to apply. So if you are a writer and you enjoy writing and you're curious, to build this kind of content in this area in higher ed, we open that every December. And you can go on the site and look at the previous years of fellows that have come through with the writing fellowship. And we've started that. I think this has been we're in our fourth cohort now. So it's been a
Nice.
couple years running now. So it's been great.
Very nice. I love it. Like I said, I didn't know anything about this. This is
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah.
It's
I'm glad to create the awareness of it because we, like I said, we've gone to the job fairs on base and people walk right by our table and they're like, I'm not looking to go to school, and we say, oh, we're not trying to make you go to school, and they say, oh, well, I'm not looking, like, we're trying to hire you, and like they're like, well, I'm not looking to be a professor or a teacher, and we're like, well, we don't have to do that. There's thousands of jobs in higher education that you could check out, and yeah, so I'm happy to raise awareness on that. That's one of our big our big areas of advocacy is um, in engaging more folks to realize that this is maybe a possibility for them.
that is actually a fantastic point to end on too. Is the
yeah,
fact that the name can kind of hide
It
what
can,
everything you're about. So
right?
I personally I like to go to every table when I go to an event. So
yeah.
I encourage everybody to hit every table because you never know. You may have
Hmm.
just walked by the perfect opportunity here at Higher Ed Military.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
I mean, as we tell people, and I say it all the time because I've had a long career in higher ed, you you know every institution is its own little city, like every military
Mhm.
installation. As Monica
Mhm.
said at the beginning, there's pretty much a job for everybody,
Mhm.
because they have to be operating at such a big level. They're little cities, a lot of the big universities. So,
Yeah.
definitely, if you're curious, check it out. You'd be surprised the transferable skills and again, the
Yeah.
opportunity. And I know a lot of veterans say, I'm trying to pay for education. How do I do it? Well, a fancy thing about a lot of schools when you work for them is they'll help you keep going to school. So
Mhm.
again,
Yep.
a little tip for that. But
Exactly.
oh my goodness, time is flying. I'm glad there's a timer
I
watching me
know.
here.
I know. We
There,
would go. We would go for another 30 minutes. I bet.
we can go for another. Yes. So if you want to keep chatting about this topic, definitely check out the Careers in Coffee that Monica mentioned. But
Mhm.
thank you, Monica, for joining us today on VET S.O.S. On behalf of the VET S.O.S family, we'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You can find VET S.O.S podcast on all your favorite podcast platforms, YouTube, social media. Make sure you subscribe and follow so you don't miss a thing from the VET S.O.S team. And remember, don't drown in the sea of transition. Grab the VET S.O.S lifeline.